tell, my sister Roxanne, what is the most dramatic thing you've done in a relationship?
Oh wow, there's so many, right? But
I know.
what I'm safe to share.
Do tell.
I think it's just for me, it's emotions. And
Mm.
emotions are always real,
Hmm.
but there's times when you let it come out, right? When you're trying to
Uh-huh.
get your way. So I think
Mm-mm.
it's the
When we're trying to
tears.
get our way. Okay.
I think it's the tears. I mean, when you seriously think you deserve to get your way.
Yeah.
I think that's it. Um, Threatening to relocate across
Okay.
country to be close to them, which really makes
Okay.
it, if it's real or not.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, when I was younger, I made the plans to in my career. Went for relocation, applied for it, got approved for it. Next step was me to go out and find a place in New York,
Oh,
and then
wow.
he didn't seem that interested anymore.
Oh,
And
okay.
and what was dramatic about that, instead of me going forward with my career, when I realized he really wasn't in it, which I thought we were going to get married and the whole thing,
Mm-hmm.
then
Mm-hmm.
I reneged on the position and stayed on the West Coast, and that was really dumb. I should have went forward with my career.
Mm. Mm.
But I guess the reasons behind why I was doing it really wasn't about me; it was about being with him.
Right.
So to me, that was one of the craziest things I've done. But I was young; I was in my 20s. I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah. But even with those situations, right? That causes. I mean, it's natural, the emotions that come out, the tears, the craziness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I've done a lot. And like you said, and like I've mentioned before, I chalk up my entire 20s. I used to call it my young and dumb phase, but it was our lesson phase. I truly believe it is that lesson period of your life. And so you're trying a little bit of everything um, in life, career, relationships, all of it. So, without incriminating myself, let's see which one I can talk about. um, I've done the craziest of things. I've climbed up um, balconies to the second floor and is basically breaking and entering, gone in through side glass door because I knew he never locked it on the second floor. Um, okay, so one of the most, oh God, I've done a love tap. I'll call it a love tap with my car. Like I see you with that other woman in your car at a stoplight. But it was enough of a love tap to jolt him into like, what's going on? Who is that? Somebody. And then he took off through the red light. And it was a high speed chase. Like I'm telling you, I've done some very dramatic things. But I think and this is the same guy, all the same guy, my first fiance.
Mhm.
Um, the most dramatic with him, I had the flu. I was sick as a dog. And something told me, like, there was a store, it's called Piggly Wiggly. Piggly Wiggly store. This is in Denton, Texas. So anybody in Texas, you might know what I'm talking about, which store I'm talking about. So there's a Wiggly literally down the street from me. I needed orange juice and something, just to try to help get over the flu. And I couldn't reach him. I
Mhm.
couldn't reach him by phone over and over and over, trying to call him to bring me these things. So something told me though. So I had on my pajamas. I just threw on my coat. It was cold. I don't recall gloves, maybe, but not a hat or anything like that. I was just like, I'm going to go get in and out of this store. But when I got in the car, something told me to go to the larger store towards the freeway, which was the Skaggs Alpha Beta. Might call it intuition, call it my ancestors trying to wake me up and say, girl, stop messing around with this dude, whatever it was. So I go to the other store, and there his car is at our favorite restaurant. And I was like, okay, because he was supposed to be all the way in Dallas by this time. I'm again in my pajamas. I walk in the restaurant, pajamas, coat, just slippers. I walk in the restaurant and I'm like looking all around, looking for him. I see him, right? Like I just hone it on, just lock down on him. And then there's a redhead at the table with him.
Mhm.
And I already had a fever, but I was like on fire. I was just on fire. I go up and I remember going up to the table and like, you know how somebody has their food in front of them?
Mm-hmm.
I just took his whole plate and just threw it up on him and was just yelling, get up, get up.
Was
She
it a
started
redhead Becky or redhead sister?
redhead Becky.
Okay.
Oh no, he was all about the Beckys.
All
He was all about the Beckys.
right.
I feel like
Mm,
I in hindsight, I feel like I was um the lightest he could go and satisfy the parents because he was truly
mm,
into the Beckys,
mhm,
truly.
mhm,
He should
mhm,
always stayed there and been with them.
mhm,
Um, but because the girl in the car, she was a blonde. Okay.
mm.
So, anywho, I caused a big scene, shut the girl down because she was trying to say stuff. And then he follows me out of the restaurant. I turn around and I just fall up and I punch him. And again, I'm incriminating myself here. Punch, his head hit the wall. He goes down. People coming into the restaurant are like, oh my God, we're gonna call the police. That I was so out of my head. I don't know if it was the sickness, medications, or just the whole frustration of that crazy toxic relationship. But I went over the edge that day. I went over the edge. I'm not gonna tell you what I did his car. I finally got I finally got back in my car because the restaurant owner came out as well and was like, we're calling the police order. I was like, I got it. I had sense enough to know I need to get out of here. I also had sense enough to, well, I hoped and prayed he wouldn't press any charges, which he didn't. But still, I did the most dramatic and crazy things behind this individual. And again, speaking to what you're saying, it's just like you were in this young headspace and you weren't really thinking of, on the other side of these decisions and the consequences of certain things. And I had a little temper at that time on me. So yeah, it was a hot mess.
But as young people, I mean, young women and young men, we're still learning how to process emotion and process
Yeah,
what that feeling of love does to you. I mean, we've all done those things, scaling the wall, chasing them with weapons. Like we've done that.
yeah.
The man I ended up marrying,
Hmm.
we were together for a couple years. Then we broke up for 5 years, and we were married for 20. When we
Mm.
broke up for 5 years, I'd be
Hmm.
out with my girlfriends at night, hitting the clubs.
Hmm.
On my way home, I just wanted to have him back. And a girl moved into
Hmm.
his place,
Okay.
one of our Asian sisters. And I would ring the doorbell 1, 2, 3 in the morning, and he would answer. And I'd pull him out, come with me. Come with
Oh.
me. I know you want to be with me. Come with me. And he'd come
Oh.
outside, he would be laughing. I think he wanted to come. I did
Uh-huh.
it all the
Uh-huh.
time. She never came
Uh-huh.
to the door. And I want him to come.
Uh-huh.
We ended up getting back together, 5 years
Uh-huh.
later and got married for 20
Right.
years. But
Right.
it's at that time, it's that emotion you feel. And to me, that's real. We were
Mm.
acting on our emotion. Maybe with age and wisdom, you learn not to do that. But is that
Right.
even honest to yourself?
Right.
So
Right.
I've been reading a lot lately, studying
Mhm.
and even with therapy, and kind
Mhm.
of realized the difference between love and emotion and
Yeah.
and coveting. So when you think of
Okay.
the word coveting, you think of,
Uh-huh.
oh, I want this, or I want what they have, or I want
Mhm.
that car, or I want that house, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
It could be even under enviousness, but it's wanting something that you think you deserve to have that
Right.
really is not yours.
Mhm.
So now that I'm older, I think back on all those behavioral things I did,
Mhm.
knowing someone's married and wanting that.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm learning that's coveting.
Yeah.
And it's like a character defect, it's a flaw.
Mhm.
And so I had to look at myself, like, why
Yeah.
do I covet things that are not mine? And I
Mhm.
think I deserve it. That's a big flaw in my character. And so I'm trying to work on that. But when I was
Okay.
younger, that would never even come across my mind. I want what I want. I deserve to have it. I'm gonna get it, and I'm gonna do whatever I can to get it. And if I lose
Okay.
it, I'm gonna get it back, right?
Okay.
But
Okay.
as an adult, we don't
Mhm.
process that way. hopefully,
Mhm.
as much.
That's a great point. That's a
Mhm.
great point. Yeah. And it takes a moment for us to be with just ourselves and that introspection. And where does that stem from? Where does that come from? Why do I feel this way? Um, for me, the work was, especially after all those moments and that relationship was, why didn't I feel like I deserved better than that treatment? I'm trying to hold on to somebody that didn't want me, clearly,
Mhm.
right? Didn't want me. Now, of course, he would always come back and beg and bring the flowers, and he upped the ante on the engagement ring. Like, he would always do things, bought me the last time he showed up with the BMW, bought me the car that we were looking at, that sorts of things. He would always do that, but did he really want
Mhm.
to be with me?
Mhm.
And then what was it about me that made me want to chase or hold on to somebody that didn't want to be with me? And so I had to do that kind of work. What are my insecurities about being alone, starting
Mhm.
over? All of those things, were there. And then the whole notion. So we met in college. So you also had at that time, um, you go to college, you find your husband, and most of my friends were getting married straight out of college. I mean, we were engaged by the time my last year in college. So that was the whole thing then. You know, you go to college, you meet your mate, you get married, so there was part of that I think was wrapped up in there somewhere too. I was not going to be able to continue with the plan,
Mhm.
right? Not only the plan that all the people that were around me were on, but the trajectory that I thought I should be on, as opposed to looking at it, hey, this could just look like something different. You graduate, you start your career, you
Mhm.
go and you travel, you do some other things. Because
Mhm.
I remember I was supposed to also study abroad while I was in college. I didn't end up doing that because I got in this relationship with him. And I'm like, I can't be in another country. And what's going to happen? I put the relationship with center where I should have been center.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
had to explore what it was about me that I wasn't thinking that way, you
Mhm.
know? So,
Do you ever really know if someone chose you for the reasons that maybe you chose them? So I don't think I've ever settled for anyone in my
mhm,
life, and I won't. Even at this age, I will not settle. I'll be
right.
alone before I settle.
Mhm,
If I can't have that coveting thing I want. But
mhm,
I've always heard that men choose to get married and get serious when they're ready to have children. And
mm,
sometimes it's later than we are. But it
mhm,
seems like things that I've read and talked to men that, it's that moment when they realize they want to have a family. That's when they want to settle down.
mhm,
But is it
mhm.
settling down, or do they really want you? Is it you, or are they ready for someone to bear their children? Right? It's really
Right.
interesting.
Yeah.
Versus, and it's not fair to say that women do it for love and men don't, but I think we allow them to settle for us
Mhm.
more than do you know what I'm saying? Like, even if I think when a man
Wha-
wants you and would do
Yeah.
anything to have you,
Right. Right.
on
Right.
their
When you
behavior,
get,
on
now
their.
I would say you don't always know when you are younger.
Mhm.
Now we know. We
Yeah,
know. We can
yeah.
pick up on cues very easily, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
I really didn't. And you know what helped me was a book that's written by a couple of the writers from the Sex and the City show. It's called He's Just Not That Into You.
Hmm.
And when I read that book, it solidified like all the cues that I had been missing. Because they're not, men aren't that hard. They aren't that hard to
Yeah.
read, and they speak with their actions.
Yes.
But also another piece of it is I think that as women, sometimes when we want those things that we covet, right?
Hmm.
It can land us in Hopeville. Oh, if I do this, or if I love them enough, or if I show this, and then that will bring them where they're like, nah,
Hmm.
I'm just not, you're just not the one for me. And it's not going to change for them.
Yeah.
And I found myself in Hopeville a couple of times and trying
Yeah.
to do this and that. And there's nothing I could have done.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
So is it
Because
a struggle with our internal conscience of knowing that you knew, but you went
Mhm,
ahead, right, and
mhm.
lowered your standards about yourself to
Yes,
get this person? And that
yes,
causes the craziness. We're really upset with ourselves inside. Like, why did I do
right.
that? Why did I stoop so low? I
Yep,
mean, women
yep.
go through the whole marriages like that. They know, right?
Mhm,
And they do all
mhm,
these things to make them
mhm.
happy and to buy them and transactional relationships, which is never love, right? And people know when
Right,
they're in a transactional relationship, they know that.
right.
Um, so I think that's a struggle within ourselves. It's that rejection. Who wants to
Mhm.
ever feel rejection, right? Even if
Yeah.
we had a part to play in it, and it
Mhm.
calls us to act out in ways that we would may never have done before.
Right, right. That's such a hard pill to swallow. But you get to a certain point where you aren't willing to compromise things. And like you said, you're not going to settle. I'm not going to settle at this point in my
Mhm,
life. And you're not willing to compromise things about yourself either,
mhm,
you know?
mhm. Yeah.
So, where I, as you know, there are certain things, and we can have conversations in a relationship. You know, everything's not going to go my way,
Right.
everything's not going to be all about me.
Right.
But there are certain things I'm not going to compromise about myself, which I did before.
Mhm,
And I can admit that. I can admit that because I learned from it. I learned
mhm,
a lot from it. And it took a lot of time to build certain things back in me where I'm not willing to compromise that ever again. Um, I mean, at the base core of that is just like my peace. Like I'm not compromising that. So if you're bringing a whole lot of crazy to the table, or you
mhm,
want to, have just instead of conversations, you always want to argue, you yell. I'm not even about that life anymore. I'm
mhm,
just not, I don't have that kind of rah-rah energy anymore. It's just like I don't want to be even surrounded with that.
mhm.
So it's just like, certain things that you're not willing to compromise. Um, so I don't foresee the dramatic things like, like I would have done in the past,
Mhm,
scaling buildings and chasing
mhm.
people and all. I'm not, no, no.
So
Good. You
what
have a
lessons
nice life.
could we share with our daughters and even our sons to
Mhm.
avoid these situations?
Mm, that's a great one. A great one. Um, number one, number one, I always say, I say this to anybody, protect your peace. If that relationship does not, it messes with your internal peace, it's speaking to you, like your
Mhm,
intuition is speaking to you and saying, this might not be it, this
mhm,
might. And you know what, they might be a great person, they might be a great wonderful person, but just not necessarily the person for you long term. And you have to pay attention to that. I would ignore that as well. I would do that too, kind of turn it down. And like, when this isn't right, or this isn't the right person, turn it, oh, well, maybe if this happens, or maybe I'll give it more time. And no,
mhm.
no. When you start having this, hey, we could be great friends, you know, or not, if that's what you choose. But I just don't think we are necessarily right for one another,
Mhm,
because you can't get that time back.
mhm.
You can't get that time
True.
back.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that would be like my number one, is really listening to yourself, that intuition, and never compromising your peace for
Love it.
anyone.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. That's great. Yeah, I think with my child, the pendulum swung the whole other way. So I wanted her to go to school so she was prepared for life for herself, to be
Mm-hmm.
financially independent,
Mm-hmm.
and successful in her own right. And maybe
Mm-hmm.
so much that I never mentioned men in her life. And I think she has a hard shell around her because of that. And that's not what I want either. And
Right.
so for her. And so I'm pretty honest now with her, like, love is wonderful. I totally believe in
Mhm.
love. It is an incredible experience.
Right. Right.
But be friends first. And most importantly, whatever age you're at, be honest
Mhm.
about what your needs are and your expectations of them in a relationship.
Yes.
And hopefully it's based on truth and honesty and integrity and respect. So I said, doesn't
Mhm.
matter how old you are, what they look like,
Mhm.
make sure that you lay the foundation and the boundaries for yourself first, and that it's very
Yeah.
clear and understood.
Yeah. Oh,
Hmm.
those are great. Great, great, great.
Hmm.
Honesty, peace, truth, integrity,
Hmm.
respect, um, demanding that or yeah, demanding that respect for yourself or commanding that respect for yourself. And I think a lot of times how we show up, how we love ourselves,
Hmm.
it's already there. Like
Yeah.
you have to get it if you're really observing how I love and respect and take care of myself. I'm not accepting anything less than what I'm going to do for myself from somebody else.
Yeah.
So that and establishing those boundaries, if it's not where they're not picking up on it for whatever reason,
Hmm.
then hey, we need to have a conversation. You
Hmm.
know, I don't communicate like that. I don't
Hmm.
argue like that. I
Hmm.
don't, there's no regret. If we have an issue that we cannot sit down and talk about and communicate without, an explosion or yelling or what, then we might not need to communicate, or we might need to go to somebody to figure out how we can communicate better, if we feel
Hmm.
like that relationship is worth it. But not compromising yourself and establishing those boundaries, those are all great. All great.
I love
Yeah.
that. And you said take care of yourself first. And doesn't that speak, Shauna, to the law of attraction? Right?
Mhm.
Who we are is what we're going to attract. And that law of
Yes.
attraction is real. And it does
It's
start
so
with
real.
self-love and self-respect.
So real. So real. That's such a great point.
Mhm.
Yeah. So when you, and this is for anybody listening, when you see people showing up in your life, whether that's, an intimate relationship or just a friendship, girlfriend, whomever, people showing up in your life that are very toxic or self-centered or narcissistic, whatever it is, that's probably a good time for you to take inventory and like why is this type of person continuing to come to me towards me?
Mhm.
What is it that I might need to tweak and work on for myself so I'm not attracting that same type of person.
Sure.
Um, yeah, and then watch what you're giving out because the universe is going to definitely send it back to you.
Mhm.
Um, because all that drama that I had going on in that first engagement, oh, I got all that drama back tenfold in the next engagement. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, whoa.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, it really pushed me to take some time to really work on myself. And
Yeah.
if you, and you can have those times in your life where you just need to be still and work on yourself. And then, no matter how much we want that relationship, we might not be ready for it, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So wait till you're ready for it. And I think that's when all the good love, all the
Mhm.
good vibes, good energy, all that will start to come towards you.
Yeah.
Okay. Any last thoughts?
Yeah, well, just
Anyone?
what you mentioned about patterns, and that's probably another topic for us for next time. But when you're
Yeah.
seeing similar situations, similar people show up in your life, men or women, in friendships and partnerships,
Hmm.
that is not healthy for you, then
Right.
it's time to peel back the onion. And the onion has thousands of layers, and a lot of time it goes back to childhood. It could be childhood traumas,
Yeah.
could relationships with your parents, or not
Yeah.
having a relationship with your parents.
Yes.
And that's a whole nother area that we can
Yes.
discuss. That requires professional attention sometimes. And so for a lot of women, we struggle through life because of these situations and past lives and past traumas that are never addressed. And so we
Yeah.
invite those same types of personalities into our lives that continue that trauma. Um,
Speak, my friend, speak. You are speaking to me
mhm,
because that's exactly what I had to do. That's exactly the work I had to do and to make those connections because
mhm,
I wasn't at that
yeah,
time in my life. I was not. So
yeah.
that is so critical. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, that's all the time that we have on this topic,
Oh,
but
mhm.
we'll definitely be back with others. And then for any of you out there watching, or there's something that you want to have us talk about or have a conversation about or share our experiences, make sure that you tag us. We have our IG information here. So send us, DM us. You can tag us on a videos, anything that you see if you want to have us have a little girl talk about those topics. So thank you all for joining us once again for Conversations with SB and Roxy. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.